Hello, I am the Dark Master, and welcome back to the history of Mississippi. In this episode, we will discuss the Jurassic period, the middle period of the Mesozoic. Last episode, I didn't really mention where Mississippi was, as it didn't really change much with Pangea still being around. Therefore, Mississippi, as we know it, didn't really exist. Well, there are no deposits we know of from the Jurassic. The Gulf of Mexico formed during the early Jurassic, which means Mississippi is a little more feasible to have existed at this time. The Gulf of Mexico formed when Pangea split into the northern supercontinent Laurasia and the southern supercontinent Gondwanaland. In the oceans, the very first Belemnites, ancestors of modern-day squids, joined the flowering ammonites, which are in many ways the Mesozoic trilobites. The reefs of the Mesozoic were also different. Instead of the stony cores of the previous Paleozoic and modern times, the primary reef builders were in fact large bivalves called rudists. On land, most modern insects existed, with the exception of the pollinators, which hadn't evolved yet due to the fact that flowers hadn't evolved yet in the Jurassic. These insects were hunted in the undergrowth by a menagerie of small animals in the shadows of dinosaurs. These included the lizard-like sphenodonts, which are sadly now reduced to a single species on New Zealand. The first recognized salamanders and caecilians are known from this time, though they are believed to have evolved in the previous period, the Triassic. There are also the Alocadosaurs. Superficially like modern salamanders, they were actually a separate order entirely within the amphibian family, having bony plates that modern amphibians, for the most part, lack. Larger amphibians were affected by the end Triassic extinction hard. While three groups survived, two of them, Capritosaurids and Trimetosaurids, soon went extinct. The third group, the Bactrophids, persisted and flourished in the Jurassic, diversifying back into two families, the Brachophidae and the Chegulosaurids. This represented the last lap of the truly giant amphibians. Several groups of early mammals lived in the underbrush, along with the last of the cynodonts, the extremely mammal-like Tritolodonts. The early mammals, despite their small size, had already radiated into the several families. The monotremes evolved in the Triassic were joined by the therians, which included the metatherians, which led to the marsupials, and the ancestors of modern-day placentals. A fourth group, the multitubulates, were the dominant group of small mammals for the rest of the Mesozoic, even surviving the KT extinction. All of these creatures had to be careful, however, because the archosaurs were the ruling reptiles at this time. The dinosaurs evolved into larger predators like Allosaurus and huge herbivores like Brachiosaurus. These Saurischian dinosaurs were joined by the Ornithischians, a primarily herbivorous group that included the famous stegosaurs and ankylosaurs. However, more interesting in my opinion were the aquatic reptiles. The ichthyosaurs, having evolved in the Triassic, reached peak diversity in the Jurassic. They were joined by the plesiosaurs and pliosaurs, which swam like sea turtles, which also evolved in this time period. The archosaurs themselves took to the sea in the form of the aquatic crocodiles, the Thattosauca. These included the superficially garville-like telesaurids and the more aquatic Metaphyinosidae. These animals were fully aquatic and could no longer, for the most part, leave the water. They were true sea crocodiles, unlike modern-day marine crocodiles. In fact, the crocodiliforms saw a massive radiation in diversity. In addition to the fully aquatic types, there were the superficially dinosaur-like species, such as Lithurgosuchus. True crocodilians in the family Neosuchidae were the only ones to survive into the Cretaceous. In the air ruled the archosaurs as well. The more basal rhamphorhynchoids with their long tails were the first pterosaurs, followed by the more advanced short-tail pterodactyloids in the Jurassic. These reptilian, bat-like creatures were joined by the first birds in the Jurassic, one of the earliest being Ornithocetus and the more famous Archaeopteryx. Strangely, unlike the previous periods I've discussed, the Jurassic lacks a clear end extinction event. It just kind of faded into the Cretaceous. Stegosaurids and some sauropod groups went mostly extinct at the end of the Jurassic. Ichthyosaurs suffered a massive decrease in diversity, and to a lesser extent the plesiosaurs did as well, and the bivalves. We will discuss the next period, the famous Cretaceous, next time on The History of Mississippi!